So how do you register and prepare for the North Carolina State Optometry Board examination? Well, in this video, I'm going to walk you through what you need to know about North Carolina Optometry Boards, including how to prepare for and dominate this daunting exam. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Ryan Corte, and this is Ryan Reflects. On this channel, I share with you actionable personal development content as well as my thoughts on trending topics and common life experiences. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Also, throughout any point in the video, make sure you check out the notes and links in the description below. Before I get started, I want to be very clear. This is not a North Carolina Optometry Board created, sponsored, or sanctioned video. It's simply a few best practices that I've used, as well as many of my colleagues have used, to prepare for and pass this exam, and information that I figured would be valuable for anybody who is interested in doing so. North Carolina is one of those states that is known to have a challenging process for optometrists to get licensed to practice in the state. Me personally, I took the time during my residency year and ended up taking it the winter of my residency year, and I spent a lot of time, about a month or so in advance, a couple hours a night, just preparing, going through cases. And I also even flew down and met with one of my mentors, Dr. Steve Eiler, and we practiced going through cases and verbalizing out the whole process, something I recommend that you do. In fact, the exam used to have even a small clinical portion to it where you would examine a patient. It no longer does, right? That's something that's no longer part of the examination process. But my mom was my patient, and I remember it being the night before, and my parents and I were out to dinner, and I even had a little mini panic attack because, as you all know, the process of preparing for this is stressful and you put a lot of pressure on yourself. And I can truly tell you that hindsight is 20/20 because the examination wasn't as bad as I perceived or envisioned it to be. Particularly, you've heard horror stories, I'm sure, and I'm here to debunk that information and get you ready to rock and roll and pass this exam. Throughout the video, I'm going to reference a number of links in the description below, and all of them are going to the North Carolina Optometry Board's website. And it's just to provide you with more context, official details. A couple things that stood out to me, though, to be a practicing optometrist in the state of North Carolina, of course, you have to graduate from an accredited optometry school in the United States. You have to pass all 3 parts of NBEO, and that's including injections. So if you didn't take or pass injections, you want to look back and make sure that you did that. And of course, you have to pass the state board's licensing exam. The examination is held twice a year, typically in August and in February, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you apply early. There are deadlines about 60 and 45 days leading up to the examination where you have to have materials into the state board to qualify and be a registered applicant. So make sure that you go through that information. Make sure you have all that information submitted to the state board. It also costs $800 to register and to take the examination. Now that is applied towards your next year's licensure, which is awesome, but you have to have that money in as well. Let's talk a little bit about the North Carolina State Optometry Board examination format, because this is something you want to be familiar with before you go in and take the exam. There are 5 stations, of which you'll be given 2 10-minute cases per a session. So a total of 10 cases, and between each station, you'll get a 15-minute break. Now, 10 minutes into the session, you will hear a beep that signals the session is halfway over, and it might be a good time to move on to your second case. The exam is oral, so you're gonna be talking it out. It's adaptive, things can change over time, and it's designed to really simulate what you're gonna see in clinic as it is anyways, right? I can tell you, I've studied and prepared for the exam, and I've seen almost every single case presentation there is that were provided to us on the study guide, which we'll talk about in actual clinical practice, right? So it's not like it's going out of left field, like things that you will never see. These are things that you can and will see throughout practice. Using the SOAP format, your goal is to come up with a diagnosis and treatment plan to take care of the patient in the case that you're discussing. At the end of the day, it's exactly what you'd be doing in clinic, but you're verbalizing this out. You're going to talk through differentials, pathophysiology. You're going to articulate everything that you can to the examiner so they understand that you know how to take care of patients effectively and appropriately. And of course, to pass, you need to get a score of 75% or better. And as I alluded to before, clinical procedures are no longer being tested in this examination, which is nice. It kind of takes out another stressful element of the exam. All right, so let's jump into some of the best tips that I have for you on how to prepare for the North Carolina State Optometry Board examination. Tip number 1, kind of a no-brainer, know the North Carolina State Optometry Board examination study guide inside and out. This really awesome resource was not available when I took the examination. I really wish it was, but again, I'll provide a link in the description below, and go to the link, download the study guide, know it inside and out. They're essentially giving you all the information of cases that can be on the exam before you step in the door, which is really, really helpful. Also, I recommend utilizing resources like Massey and I, Will's Eye Manual, KMK Part 2 Study Guide, even your optometry school disease course notes to prepare, and make sure that you familiarize yourself with landmark case studies and studies in general that touch on the treatment and management of ocular disease. Tip number 2, review lots of case photos and specialized testing. Each case will likely have clinical photos and presentations in a picture format, and or specialized testing like visual fields, OCTs, MRI, CT scans, or could have both. So it's in your best interest to utilize textbooks, clinical databases, even Google search to review as much imaging and specialized testing and case presentations visually as possible. You're also going to want to understand what lab tests are required to make a proper diagnosis and be able to verbalize and articulate this to the examiner. Tip number 3, study consistently and perfect verbalizing cases out loud. Personally, I spent about a month, like I had mentioned earlier, verbalizing cases using the SOAP format with classmates, colleagues. But what you have and the benefit that you have now and what COVID has taught us is that we can really schedule a lot of these different breakout sessions very effectively utilizing Zoom, FaceTime, Microsoft Teams, whatever it may be. Again, I flew down to North Carolina to meet with one of my mentors. But man, if I had the opportunity to do so via Zoom, I might have taken him up on that, just depending on his time and my time. So definitely utilize technology to its fullest extent. Schedule these Zoom calls, these FaceTime calls, or even in-person meetups as consistently as possible leading up to the exam, and get really comfortable talking things out. Tip number 4, practice time management. Honestly, it's in your best interest to be comprehensive yet efficient with your time. And let's say you get stuck on a case and you just kind of have a mental brain fart. Move on to the next case and then circle back to the case that you got stuck on if you have time at the end. You may find that you will have time, and maybe walking and talking through the other case, something pops into your head and you know how to effectively verbalize and talk out the case that you got stuck on. Tip number 5, complete the entire exam. And by exam, I mean entire patient exam, right? In every single case presentation that you're talking through. So let's say you have a corneal loss on the front of the eye. You're excited, you effectively diagnosed it, you're treating it appropriately. Don't forget to dilate, right? Don't forget to take a look at the back of the eye. Complete the entire examination as if you would if that patient was in your chair in practice, because there could be something else going on. And I know for a fact that sometimes these case presentations have more than one thing going on. Oftentimes they do, right? Just like real life human beings that we care for every single day. And do so in a logical sequence. So don't dilate a patient before you check pressures and angles. Do exactly as you would while caring for a patient in your chair. Tip number 6, be as specific as possible. It's in your best interest to be as detailed as possible as you go through and articulate how you're going to treat and manage a patient. This includes if you're writing prescriptions, verbalize out the entire prescription, right? Be as specific as possible. If you're making a referral, who you're referring to and why. Don't just say a doctor, say rheumatology if you're going to refer to a rheumatologist, and be as specific as possible to what is leading your decision making. Are there any landmark clinical studies that are out there that you can reference? Those are all things that you want to be as clear and specific as possible about throughout the exam process. And tip number 7, relax. Deep breath, do it with me. Relax. You got this. I know how stressful it can be preparing for a test of this magnitude, understanding that it can impact your ability to practice where you want to be. But you got this. You're well trained, you're well prepared. Go in, prepare the best that you possibly can, be confident, going with a kind of a clear headspace, and understand that you are going to knock this exam out of the park, and you're going to be a practicing licensed optometrist in the state of North Carolina. So let me know in the comments below, how do you plan on preparing for the North Carolina State Optometry Board examination? Of course, there are many optometrists that practice in this state, and I'd love to hear, if anybody's watching this video, how they planned for and prepared for this examination. And if you're about to take it, let me know what you're doing. Are you doing anything differently? As a group, collectively, get together, walk through case scenarios, verbalize it out, and you are going to rock this exam. And as always, stay tuned for my next video where we can reflect and grow stronger together.